The iPad mini 6 may be getting a design change that's kind of coming out of left field. This was not expected, but in hindsight, it's actually making more and more sense the more I think about it. Let's begin. So this leak comes from case manufacturers, actually, and the person reporting on it is the same person who's given us a lot of the iPhone 13 cases in the past that indirectly kind of confirmed the naming, although it's not confirmed just yet. But if a case manufacturer is making a change like this, it's a pretty noticeable one. It's not just a template concept artwork. Like, they have to retool their cases in order to accommodate for this design change, which, if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail, basically they're moving the volume buttons to not be directly next to the power/touch ID button, except on the longer side. And now they're moving the volume buttons to be on the top left corner of the iPad mini. That way you can accommodate the Apple Pencil 2 on the top of the iPad mini if it were in landscape. This actually makes a ton more sense to me because that was my biggest issue I had with all of the iPad mini 6 renders in the past. Keeping the volume buttons where they were before, there wouldn't be enough space for the Apple Pencil 2. And if you tried to put it on the opposite end of the iPad, it would throw off all of the third-party cases and first-party cases, honestly. You need that camera to be at the up top if you're using a smart cover, and you can't dock that Apple Pencil to the bottom if that's where the iPad is resting when it's, you know, folded up and propped upwards for you. Now, a lot of people, including Renders by Ian, was suggesting that Apple's gonna go with a smaller Apple Pencil design that's still inductive. It's still like the Apple Pencil 2, but it's like a golf version because it's small, right? And I assume that would just have a cheaper price point and a worse battery life, but the main reason I had a hard time believing the smaller Apple Pencil rumor is because if they started making like a, I don't know, $90 or $80 golf version of the Apple Pencil 2, what would stop people from buying that instead of the more expensive, higher priced $130 Apple Pencil 2, which, let's be honest, after 3 years, that thing's still pretty dang expensive. And if people knew that they could buy a cheaper pencil that works with the iPad Air, works with the iPad Pro, that would probably butcher the sales of the higher-end pencil, and Apple doesn't want to cannibalize their best-selling stylus, so why not sell, you know, an affordable iPad that a lot of people can buy because it's so cheap and at the same time so modern? That's another thing I love about these renders, is that they allude to the idea of the iPad mini 6 actually having stereo speakers, just like its older brother, the iPad Air 4, and that's what I really think is a make-or-break feature of this device. If the stereo speakers don't make it to the mini 6, that's going to be very annoying and frustrating. And of course it's got to have USB-C, just like its older brother as well, so using the Apple Pencil 1 wasn't going to work. But if you have a wider market to cater to of people that can buy this much more affordable iPad, then upselling them on a $130 pencil kind of secures a lot more profit margins, especially if that's like the main selling point of the iPad mini. It's like, yeah, you can hold it in one hand and take notes with the other. It's so simple, it's so integrated, and yet you can fit it in a very large pocket if you have cargo shorts. But yeah, mainly stereo speakers, redesigned volume button. I don't know how people are gonna take that, you know? I think it's worth it because, okay, you just gotta reach to a little bit different place anytime you want to change volume, but the iPad mini is so small and so easy to hold, I don't think that would be a big shift, and as long as it allows the Apple Pencil 2 to work with it, I think it's a win. It's probably a lot easier for Apple to just rearrange some internal components on the iPad mini than it would be to start manufacturing a whole different separate line of Apple Pencil, with the potential of killing the sales of their more popular Apple Pencil. I mean, I guess via software they could make it so that the mini Apple Pencil only works with the iPad mini 6, but it will not work with the higher end iPads, but I feel like that's already kind of confusing. Frankly, I was kind of hoping we could see the death of the Apple Pencil 1 by now, but the budget iPad still needs it, so I'm personally on board with this design. I think that it's a little asymmetrical and it's a little weird at first, but the more I think about it, it makes clear sense to me. The other part of this leak that I had a harder time believing is that these case manufacturers still put a flash on the inside. I don't know why Apple would not put a flash on the Air 4, but they would put one on the Mini. Maybe because the iPad Mini hasn't sold as great in the past, they're willing to go all out with this one and give it everything they got because they want it to sell at much higher volume, so throwing in the flash, maybe not as expensive as it was last year for some reason. Also, this leaker, Majin, is suggesting that the iPad Mini 6 is going to launch at $400, which seems way too good to be true for me. I have a difficult time believing that aspect about it, but I'm guessing the case manufacturers aren't listing the official prices of the iPad yet. That's probably information reserved for Apple, so that part of the leak I would say is less believable, as well as him saying that the A14 chip would be equipped inside it. I think the A14 is fine, but I've just heard a lot of people suggesting it would get A15. Since it's allegedly coming out in a separate event, it won't be launching tomorrow. Apparently, it's supposed to be at a Mac event that will be in October and maybe not even ship until November. Every other detail of this leak sounds a little fuzzy to me, but I think the main one about the volume buttons being moved makes the most amount of sense for Apple to keep selling $130 pencils and not have to drastically redesign one, and case manufacturers hearing about this information now makes a ton of sense to me, because you wouldn't want to start mass production of your iPad mini 6 cases and then find out, holy crap, all of our volume buttons aren't going to work anymore. But accommodating a slightly large camera cutout for a potential flash, even if the flash doesn't make it to production, yeah, that's not as big a deal. What do you guys think is more believable? Do you think the iPad mini 6 won't have stereo speakers and the volume buttons will be in the same place and we'll just get an Apple Pencil Golf edition? Or do you think these new leaks make a ton more sense? Volume buttons at the top, full-size Apple Pencil 2, and for some generous reason Apple decides to throw in flash and maybe a really low starting price of $400. Sounds way too good to be true. I think we should still be expecting $500 when this does inevitably launch, but this is an awesome curveball I was not anticipating. So feel free to let me know your guesses down below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the event.